So, in case you didn't get enough fix your van, sit inside of mechanic shops all day videos, we've got more for you today. Now it's transmission shudder so bad, can't even hold on to the steering wheel. I don't really even know or even want to put the mental effort of guessing what's wrong with the van at this point. U-joints, bearings and transmissions, faulty, shitty driving, I have no idea. Well, we're gonna go to another shop and spend a couple more $100 probably, at least, to get this guy to look at this. See how that goes for us. So we went into a transmission shop this time. The guys had the time to test drive the vehicle, get it up on the stand, wiggle things around, and kind of figure it out. Once we got all the weight off of all the wheels, then you could see the play that was happening in the drive shaft. So it wasn't until we could do that, we can get all the wheels up off the ground, that we would really know. It didn't show up for me while I was trying to do it on the ground. So it looks like both our U-joints are toast, which isn't that big of a deal. We can replace those. Those aren't too expensive, but the big clincher and what we'll know for sure tomorrow is whether or not our rear differential is totally toast. And if it is, it's looking at, you know, $1,200 to fix that or something like that. It's going to be really quite pricey. So hopefully we're not in bad shape. I mean, this did happen very suddenly, so I'm hoping that it's just the bearings in there, not the whole gear, everything. So we'll find out tomorrow for sure. Either way, it's not exactly a good day to be a vehicle dweller.
And the thing is, if I knew, I'm very budget oriented, which is weird because I seem like I'm a little floopy. But
You don't seem floopy.
well, I mean, I don't seem like the kind of person who had a budget, and I'm not the kind of person that would write down a budget, but I know how much money I can spend each month based on how much I've saved, and I'm not making any income, so that kind of just stick to that. And I've already spent my entire budget for February, and it's February 3rd, and it just bothers me because if I knew this was going to happen, I would have been more frugal. Like, I wouldn't have spent like $100 on film last week. Stupid things that like I didn't need to spend money on, but I had no idea, and there's no way, you have no way of knowing that this is gonna happen until it happens.
I don't know that I would have cheaped out on beer. I feel like that was a necessity.
Well, beer's not that expensive. It's not like it's $100 or something.
Okay, well. So that's it for tonight. We had some good dinner. We're gonna watch more X-Files as we're preparing for Roswell, and first thing tomorrow morning, we're going to get back to the transmission shop. Hopefully they'll have some good news for us.
But I doubt it.
I doubt it too. No! Optimism. News.
Kind of, you know, the spider gear could be bad, you know, too. You know what I mean? It's wallered out, and not the pen, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just an old diff. I mean, it's.
That's it, eh?
It's like completely dry, no bearings in it whatsoever.
Yeah. So that looks pretty rough. So there's a good chance that these U-joints will fix the shutter completely.
It should fix that vibration.
Yeah.
The noise, I'm not sure about. Hopefully.
It probably won't fix the clunk, but it'll fix the vibrations.
Yeah.
Alright, well, I guess that's all we can ask for in this price point. It's a lot more expensive to fix the clunk.
Oh yeah.
They ended up pulling the cover off of the axle, and we were playing around with it. There is definitely some play there, and there's definitely some wear, but it's not to a point where we believe it will fail before we get back to Canada. I think that it's something that I definitely need to fix in the next year, so maybe this summer we'll probably fix it and do a complete rebuild, but for now it seems to be holding up really well. He replaced the U-joints on the drive shaft on both ends. That took away all the vibration. So between the catalytic converter replacement we had 2 days ago and the U-joint replacement we just had now, and all of the other little bits and bytes and labor and all that stuff, we've spent a total of about $800 Canadian in 2 days, 3 days. One didn't have any fun with it, which just kind of sucks. But you know what? I'm not even sure all our issues are gone. I think everything's kind of been flushed out by that high altitude, and all the problems are emerging at once. And I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's been supporting us on Patreon. The financial burden we've just been struck with just seems to coincide really well with getting a few Patreon supporters. So I shouldn't bitch. We're going to get it all fixed up. It's all done. It's all ready to go. I'm just going to do a few more tests on it, and we're going to see some of Phoenix and then head east off to New Mexico and Texas.
Why don't you come get your food?
So this is another one of those pieces of wisdom that my buddy in San Francisco that I met while you were gone gave me, and it's called super grilled cheese, and it involves shredded cheese on the outside, then butter, bread, cheese, onions, cheese, bread, butter, more shredded cheese on top, flip it over a couple times, crispy grilled cheese goodness, and it can be done in the van really easily. I love. What do you think of this super grilled cheese?
Tastes pretty good so far. I only had one bite.
Yeah, we'll give us another bite. I want to hear a review on this.
Tastes extra cheesy, extra oniony, extra crispy. It's pretty good.
Ever since I've been a kid, and especially as a Canadian, we don't really have these flash flood drainage tubes that you guys have down here in the desert and in California and stuff. So there's been all this really cool movies where the bad guys and good guys chase each other down these cool tubes, and there's always been people skateboarding them. I've always wanted to do it, so today's my chance. I'm gonna jump a fence and try it out. How's your book? Oh.
Someone ripped this guy's Trump sticker off. Ain't even mad.
You're in Phoenix, a place with a very large Mexican immigrant population, and you have a Trump sticker on the back of your car. That's ballsy. That's really ballsy. Welcome to downtown Phoenix. We're gonna go see some art, and then after we're gonna have some dinner maybe, and do some other things. Go see some other stuff.
Maybe walk around.
I have
That's
no
free
idea.
parking.
I have no idea what Phoenix has to offer.
Me neither.
So we'll figure
I
it
looked
out.
it up. It seemed like a lot of parks.
Oh, parks are nice.
Yeah. to going through on the guided tours, we usually go through on our own, and we sort of take the time to read about each exhibition and each piece of art, and sometimes we talk about it between us and all that kind of stuff. But it was different to have somebody sort of giving you a really quick synopsis of each room. So they did like a 45-minute tour of the whole thing, which is pretty big, and they give you just kind of a quick overview. Well, we were really interested to see how do Americans talk about their Indigenous people differently than we do in Canada, as there's a lot of similarities in culture, but there's also a lot of differences. American Indian was a term that was used, and in Canada we don't really use the term Indian at all. It's kind of like a derogatory term, or it's a term that sometimes Native people will use sort of tongue-in-cheek, because it's a ridiculous term, because it's all about an explorer getting lost and thinking he was in India.
The other thing that we find very weird is the way that people talk about boarding schools here. Whereas back home, they're residential schools, and they're all closed down in the 90s, which was embarrassingly late, and it's very negative connotations around the whole idea of the residential school. We don't know that much about the system, how it went down here. I have to assume that it wasn't much better. And the whole purpose, either way, the whole purpose of the residential schools was to wipe out cultures, so it just seems very bizarre for our tour guide to talk about it in any positive sense, but she did, and it seemed like the rest of the guests here and the rest of the people taking the tour with us were pretty down with it. So I guess there's just a different connotation about residential schools here in America, so we'll have to do more research and learn more.
I was really surprised because I didn't know that they're still open, and so obviously they've been taken over by like the community runs them now instead of the government or whatever, or the church. But I just can't believe that they still have ones that are open, and there must be like good reasons for that, why they would keep those facilities. Maybe it's the only facility that community has and they need to use that facility. But I saw, you know, when they opened them, like 18 whatever it was to present was written on the wall, and I couldn't believe that, because I feel like I'm amazed that residential schools in Canada were still open when I was alive. I can't believe that we were so behind in our racist ideas. And so in Canada, there's some of the residential schools you can go through that are open right. They're not open, but they're kind of like museums now. You can go through them. And even in Canada, the government tries to put a positive twist on what happened. So they'll talk about the few examples of people who had good experiences instead of the thousands of examples of people who were abused and tortured and taken away from their families and taken away from their culture and all these atrocities that happened. So it wasn't really surprising to me that when we went through, the guide talked about the positive aspects of the boarding school, but it still really hurts as somebody who is Aboriginal and is trying to find connection to their culture. And for me, it's just really upsetting, because this is something that took away culture and took away language, and I don't speak my language. I don't speak Mohawk, and for me, it's just really symbolic of the reasons why my grandmother couldn't live in her community, why my grandmother and my mother kind of did, pretended that they weren't Aboriginal, because it was seen as a bad thing because of all the racism at the time, because they were trying to wipe out these cultures. And so for me, when we go through and they talk about positive aspects, it kind of personally hurts, even on a level more than, we understand human suffering and we think that that's awful, but it sort of personally hurts even more, because it makes me think about my loss of connection to my culture and why that happened, and it feels wrong for people to talk about it in any way that is positive.
not knowing at all anything about fry bread, bannock bread, anything like that. And if anything even remotely similar to that. But Shelby grew up, and your aunt, mom, grandma, they all talked about it, all knew it, all had it around a lot. So it's a new experience for me. I love trying out new foods. I get to try some of your new foods.
I think most cultures have some kind of bready, carby thing that they fry up and eat. You know, I don't know. I don't really know all the history behind it, other than it has something to do with when the colonial people brought over like flour and sugar and all those things that they didn't have. They would make this. They probably put it in like a pan over a fire and then ate it because it would fill them up.
It was a ready, easy form
Easy
of
carb-filled, calorie.
But you can make it a fire anywhere you want.
And I think usually when they say Indian tacos, it means like a taco and fry bread instead of like a tortilla.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I think I'm gonna have to eat this with a fork and a knife.
The bread is so crispy and fluffy, so good. And the stew, I guess it's a stew. Not expecting it to be that meaty because of how bright red it is, but oh, it is savory. So, how was your bannock taco?
Oh god, it was so big.
So much food though, eh?
So much food. It was good.
So it's been a long day, full of a lot of stuff, and I'm exhausted personally. So I think we should pack it in a little bit. I'm gonna edit some right here, and let's watch some X-Files and some Flash. Are you excited to get to the desert again? Maybe get abducted by aliens?
I'm excited to see all the alien paraphernalia.
Yeah.
And the X-Files is pretty good. I think it's just like an older version of Fringe.
Which we love so much.
We love Fringe. So we're giving it a chance. We've only watched one episode. It's pretty old, but it's surprisingly it's not as cheesy as you would think for an old show about aliens.
It's an oldie, but it's a goldie. Alright, good night everybody.
Night.